Joining the Observer on the air live couldn't be easier. First, visit bit.ly/obguest. Once you click on that, you'll wind up on this screen. Then, you'll have to choose the webcam that you want to use. You can see there's a list of them here. And once you choose the right webcam, you'll then have to choose the microphone that you want to use. It's all very simple. Then type in your name where it says your name here. And once you have finished typing your name, click the join button. Then you'll be in the queue to be on the air. It's that easy. Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Panessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 16th day of April in the year 2024. Sure hope you're enjoying your Tuesdays no matter where you are in the country. Gorgeous day here in the Northeast. 67 degrees right now in downtown Kearney, so really hope you're all enjoying the weather no matter where it is you are. And as you do each and every Tuesday afternoon, you welcome me into your home so that I might bring you this week's news. And of course, before we do that, we welcome in all of you who are watching, including our friend Carmen De Jesus. Carmen, it is good to see you. And Terry Perales is also here. Terry, thank you very, very much for joining us today. Hope you enjoy the day too and this gorgeous weather out there, because it is a nice one after yesterday. Man, it was 83 degrees on the way home yesterday. 83 in April. I will take that any day of the week. So before we get into the newspaper, there's a couple of things that I want to cover first, just beautifully, really quickly here. The first thing is this: the oratorical contest today that happens nationwide happened locally, at least in Kearney today, in Lincoln Middle School, and I was honored to be invited as one of the judges today for the contest by Dr. John Branwell, who is the leader of the oratorical contest for the Optimist Club here in Kearney. And there were 12 speeches given by 7th and 8th graders at Lincoln Middle School. And when I tell you, what I saw today was what you consider the best that Kearney has. I'm not kidding you. These kids, 11 girls and 1 boy, it takes so much courage for people to get up in front of a crowd. And half of the 8th graders, I believe, were in the auditorium at the time of the first 6 speeches. And then the entire grade was there for the second half of this, for period number 2. And every single one of those kids who got up to that microphone and offered their speeches were tremendously talented young people. And the speeches were great. The speeches were absolutely tremendous. And John does a great job pulling this together. It's not easy to pull a contest of this nature together, but he did. And I got to tell you, what I saw at Lincoln Middle School today was impressive. Jimmy Hempel, the principal, is doing a phenomenal job of leading these young people in Kearney. And I was just so fortunate to be as an invited guest there to witness this greatness. And the things that some of these kids said was just inspiring. And I'll write about it next week in next week's edition of The Observer. But it is so cool to see what happens with these types of things. It's one of many things. You know, Flora Encarnação, the superintendent of schools, was also present. And she was showing me about this media arts course that they have at Lincoln School right now. And there were kids who were there who are part of the club. And I think there's a class as well. And they filmed the whole thing. They were taking photographs. They're so super involved. And what was most impressive, I think, about seeing that was that most of them, it's not all of them, were on their own. They had no adult supervision directly. They weren't being told what they had to do and what they shouldn't do. They just did it on their own, and they did such a great job. So it was a great morning today at Lincoln School. I was really grateful to be a part of such an event. I was a student at Lincoln School back in 1988, so you can imagine going back there was a treat in and of itself. But congratulations to all of the participants. 2 of them will move on to a regional competition. In fact, it turns out the girl who won the contest can't make the regional contest. So the second and third place finishers will go to the regional contest in Pennsylvania. And when I get a chance, John Branwell is going to join us one of these days to talk about all the great work that the Optimists do, the Optimist Club, and the Oratorical Contest at Lincoln Middle School. But to Jimmy Hempel, great job. What you're doing there is very, very evident, and whatever it is, just keep doing it because it's really, really good. Now, this is something that was in the paper this week, but it's something I think that deserves a little bit more attention than just the story that we have in the paper, and that is that and I think if all of you don't know this just yet, George King is retiring as the chief of police of the Kearney Police Department at the end of this month. He became chief late in 2017 when John Dowie retired. You know, John had to retire at 65, and I don't think he would have retired by now if he didn't have to do so by law. And George has decided that at the end of this month, he is going to move on to, excuse me, greater pastures. I don't think by any means this is the end of his career because he's still a young guy and he's still got a lot left in him. But I think it came time and he realized it and he is going to hang it up on April the 30th, right here in town, in the town of Kearney, with a special walkout that day at 10 o'clock at police headquarters. It's going to be tough to see George King go because we really had a fantastic relationship with him, did Lisa and myself. And George, to a fault, was transparent with us. And, you know, police chiefs aren't always transparent. Police departments aren't always transparent with the media. But from the minute he took over until the very last day, he was always forthcoming. And this is not to say John Dowie wasn't either, because John Dowie was as well. George set a great standard, though. He was tremendously transparent in the years that he was the chief of police in the town of Kearney, and we are going to miss him very, very much. But not disappointed because Scott McPhee, his current deputy chief, will be taking over as chief of police as of May the 1st. So what will happen is Scott is going to be sworn in as the chief tonight at Kearney Town Hall at 7 p.m., but it is effective May the 1st or April 30th, whenever George is officially out the door. Scott will then transition seamlessly into the chief's position that very same day and take over as the head of the department of 120, however many police officers there are. And, you know, Scott was next in line, and there's no better person in my mind to be taking over the Kearney Police Department than Scott McPhee. I've known Scott for a really, really long time. In fact, many of you will remember him from Elm Street Deli. He owned that deli in the 80s and in the early 90s. He joined the department in 1992, I believe, and he worked his way up the ladder and is such a great guy, and he's going to do a good job as the new chief, and we congratulate him as well. His deputy chief is going to be currently Captain Paul Barshevsky. Paul is a captain in the Kearney Police Department, and he was the one who was chosen to be I believe the title is interim or provisional chief, because there was no test given for deputy chief. So when that happens, there's a choice that's made. I was a little bit surprised. This is no disrespect meant to Paul, because Paul's a great guy, but I thought it was going to be Tim Wagner, because Tim has a master's degree and he's studying to get a Juris Doctorate at Seton Hall Law School right now. And usually I thought those kind of things go into factoring on who becomes a chief, deputy chief, things of that nature when there's no test. But the town chose Paul. We wish Paul all the best. And again, when I say that, this is not meant to be any disrespect to Paul whatsoever, but I just thought it was going to be Tim, because he's got I believe, the credentials are a little bit different than Paul's were. So we'll see. I think this will be something that has to be done by test anyway, and the next test comes in December. So it'll be interesting to see if this is a permanent thing or if it's a temporary thing in the next couple of months. But congratulations to everybody at the Kearney Police Department, to George, who is retiring, to Scott and Paul, who are moving up in the ranks. And I'm sure Tim will find something very, very nice in the Kearney Police Department, too, as now the highest ranking captain in the Kearney Police Department. Congratulations to them all. George, we're going to miss you, but I know we're going to see you around here, too. And I know I'll think about you every time I pass Jumboland on Route 206. That's an inside thing. If you've ever been on Route 206, you've seen Jumboland, and Jumboland is one of the craziest places in all of New Jersey, but he passes it on the way to his country house, and my mother lives right over there by it, too. Now, as we get into this week's edition of The Observer, a quick story on the front page, but I'm going to mute this to cough for a second. On Sunday, I had the opportunity to go to North Arlington, thanks to an invitation from Mayor Dan Pronti. And the reason I was there was because Fisher Field, the playground at Fisher Field, was being renamed the Detective Joseph Seals Memorial Playground. Joseph Seals was killed in the line of duty in 2019 in Jersey City. Yeah, many of you may remember this, and I unfortunately remember it all too well because all of us here at the office were listening to the Jersey City Police Department scanner that day. It was such an awful, awful day. And some of the guys that we know, I can think of Rich Poplawski Jr., Sergeant Mike Gonzalez, and a few of the other members of the SWAT team were over there in Jersey City when this happened. And Detective Seals was one of 5 people who lost his life. There was also a gentleman from Harrison who was killed while he was working at a Jewish kosher deli in Jersey City that day. And, Dan Pronti is a retired Montclair police sergeant, where Montclair had a shooting yesterday. One of its officers was shot, God almighty. But Dan is the kind of guy who knows when something has to be done to honor somebody who made the ultimate sacrifice. And so he and the Borough Council got together and they renamed this new playground, or should say named this playground, the Joseph Seals Memorial Playground over at Fisher Field off of 6th Street in North Arlington. And the ceremony today on Sunday was just tremendous. There were so many police officers there from Jersey City, North Arlington, union leaders. I got to see the Kearney PBA president, Mina Claudius, was also there. A lot of elected officials were there as well. A.J. Ford, who is a legislative aide to Congressman Pascrell and who grew up and lives in North Arlington, presented a flag to Laura Seals, the widow of Joseph Seals. The flag flew over Congress in Detective Seals' honor by request of Congressman Pascrell. So there was just so much pomp and circumstance and beauty in that day. A.J. Ford, by the way, is the grandson of our own Carol Manley right here. So you talk about somebody who has done pretty damn good for himself. It's A.J. But I digress a little bit here. The truth of the matter is, it was a beautiful ceremony, a well-deserved ceremony for a man who gave his life in service to the United States of America, to the Jersey City Police Department, and who was an integral part of life in North Arlington. And I know his widow, Laura, who was present, and his 2 boys were there. They all missed their dad very, very much. But this is an honor that will always stick with them, no matter where they go in North Arlington now. A part of their dad will always be there, and his legacy will live on long after many people forget about that horrible day. And let's be realistic. It was an absolutely horrific day. I mean, remember, there were people shooting inside the school, trying to get these 2 people who committed the murder. It was an absolutely horrible day. But from all things that are dark and all things that are bleak, beautiful things sometimes arise from the ashes. And that's exactly what happened with this park. And I can't thank Dan Pronti, the mayor of North Arlington, and the Borough Council enough for doing this, because this is an honor. That was a no-brainer, and they went ahead and did it. And it was absolutely a beautiful ceremony. And may Joseph Seals, God rest his soul, rest in peace, because he is certainly missed. And he was a very important detective in Jersey City who took a lot of guns off the streets over the years. And I know his current chief even mentioned it on Sunday, how much Detective Seals is indeed missed. As we move on to other stories that are of less importance, of course. Arbor Day is coming up, and in the township of Belleville, if you live there and you want to plant a new tree, they are giving away seedlings for it. So read the story on page number 2, and you'll be able to pick up some of the seedlings to plant. It's one per family, so keep that in mind. But you also have to be a Belleville resident as well to take part in this. This was from the police blotter that Mike and Tarchik sent a couple of weeks ago. This guy is brilliant. You see this picture here? Uh, excuse me. They're not allowed to. The Hudson County Prosecutor's Office and the Kearney Police Department is not allowed to give out mugshots. But this guy here had his Facebook profile picture out in public. He wasn't exactly hiding it. This was his profile picture. And he was involved in a robbery where he claimed to have a gun in his shirt. And you know how people like hide and they point at you like to have a gun with their finger inside their shirts or their jackets or whatever. That's what this guy did. He robbed somebody and he said that if they didn't comply with his wishes, that he was going to shoot them. For good measure, he punched the victim and then took off. He fortunately didn't have a gun on him the day that he robbed somebody on Kearney Avenue. But the truth of the matter is, he is no stranger to guns. This gun here, from what I understand, it was confirmed by a couple of police officers who don't have any connection to the case that this was, in fact, the defendant in this case, and that the gun that he has was a modified magazine that carries more than it's supposed to, and that the gun itself is not registered and is illegal. So this is what we're dealing with. And this guy was on Kearney Street, and he pretended to have a gun and robbed somebody using it. So pretty disgusting, but he's now behind bars. Whether he's still there, actually, right now, I don't know. I didn't check today. Sometimes, as you know, when we do these stories, by the time they get out to the public, the bail has already been given or they've been released or sprung for whatever reason. And I just didn't get a chance to check this morning, but he was behind bars last week, much I can tell you. Harrison's got a gifted and talented program like so many school districts do. And our dear friend Laura Compton sent this over. And this is a story that one of the teachers who's in the Gifted and Talented program wrote about the Dream Flag Project at Washington Middle School. They did it in conjunction with a school from Secaucus. And it's a real nice event that they do each and every year at Washington Middle School. Things are happening at Washington Middle School, too. Earlier I spoke about Lincoln, but these other schools are doing a phenomenal job, too. So I hope you'll read this on page number 5. Laura sent it to us, and we included it in this week's edition of the newspaper. And we congratulate them on great work. It's really tremendous work that they're doing over at Washington Middle School in the town of Harrison. Let's see. I'm going to just kind of skip around here. This is another blotter entry. This guy was just belligerent, and he was arrested. And on his way out of police headquarters, his brother came to pick him up. He had been released on his own recognizance, which meant there was no bail required. And on his way out, he started to get belligerent and he punched a police officer in the stomach. And if you can imagine this, you talk about restraint being demonstrated by police officers. They tacked on an additional charge, but they didn't rearrest him. I don't know if that was the right move. But the truth of the matter is, if they had probably cuffed him and brought him back in and gone through this whole rigmarole, chances are he still would have been released at the end. But this is the type of the things that these police officers are facing here, where you arrest a guy, he gets sprung, he's still drunk. By the time he leaves headquarters, he punches a cop on the way out the door instead of just shutting his damn mouth and going home. What the hell is going on? But that's exactly what happened here. Fortunately, he is okay. But I guess I understand why they didn't pursue it and they just tacked the charges on him afterwards, because bringing him back in and going through the whole process, he probably would have been sprung anyway. So why not just add the charges on and then move on from there? Jason Bernstein has 3 sports stories today, including the first athlete of the week from the spring sports season. You believe we're already into the spring sports season? Baseball, all the spring sports are in full swing. Check that out. Jason's doing a phenomenal job in his second year with us here as the Observer sports reporter. and we're very grateful to have him. Of course, there are 2 pages of classifieds, lots of things happening. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a high price rental, you will find it in this week's edition of the Observer in the classified. So check those out as well when you get a chance. There's plenty for everyone at some point in this week's edition of the Observer. And now at 53 minutes past the hour, we are officially done already. And I didn't get a chance to say hello to a lot of people, so let me do that right now. Lori Bradow's here. Lori, good to see you. Henry Atwell, it's always a pleasure to see you, too. Hope everything's going well with you. Larry Hanlon, back to blue indeed. Patricia Long, our favorite and greatest letter carrier. It's good to see you, too. I have not seen Pat today. I usually see her at some point during the day when she pops in the office, but not yet today. Carol Manley. Well, what do I say about Carol Manley, Kearney's Woman of the Year, which is in this week's edition of the Observer, too. And I got to go back to that because I completely passed right over it. But I talked about it in last week's live video. But let me get to this right here. There it is. Kearney's Woman of the Year, our own Carol Manley. So congratulations again to our dear friend Carol. My Uncle Mike is watching us as well from Carlsbad, California. The Mets are 8-8, and the Rangers are about to go on a run, I'm afraid. So congrats for that. June Hearn is here with us. June, of course, is Carol's mom. My buddy Bill Scarterfield out in Arizona. Carmen and Terry. Thank you for being here today. We will be back on Friday, of course, at 1:30 with a look at the weather forecast. Hopefully it'll be nice again this weekend, better than last weekend and Saturday was especially. And then, of course, if anything breaks between now and Friday, we will join you a little bit earlier before Friday. So from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, it's Kevin Canessa signing off for now. And we hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Take care, everybody. And Marcelo Haranga. Marcelo, good to see you, buddy. Say hi to Jesus for me. Talk to you all later, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.